One of the ways you can execute a swing in the game is with a real-time swing with your mouse and keyboard. So a real-time mouse swing, a real-time swing with the mouse is set under settings and controls like every other swing type. And with that setting, the avatar or the image of the player on the screen will move as you move your mouse. So although it's similar to motion swing, you no longer have a gauge, a swing gauge, to tell you where your power is. Your gauge of your power will be how far back the player moves the ball, moves the club. The swing is started with a right click, and that will remove most of the meter and most of the information from the screen. You'll still see down at the bottom right hand corner a little icon with a golfer in it, and that means that you have started the swing, and that little icon will turn red when you actually start moving your mouse. So when you pull the mouse back towards you, you'll see it goes red, and you'll see the player start to move the club back. When you get to approximately this position, that's 100%. If you go down and forward, you will, the player doesn't move forward on the forward swing until you make contact. So there's a bit of a delay there. I'm not sure if this is going to change, but the real-time swing is mostly in the backswing. So again, a right click to start, pull the mouse back to whatever power you want, and then push the mouse forward, and your player will swing once you've pushed the mouse forward beyond the point where you started your swing. So again, if I start the swing with the mouse right here at the end of the tee box, even though the pointer is gone, when I right click, I have to make sure that when I push the mouse forward, it goes beyond that point and the swing starts. Just like the motion swing, you'll want to have your ratio about 0.25. So swing back and forward at roughly 0.25. As you can see, I made a 0.35 ratio, and that pushed the ball out to the right. Just like if I went too quickly on the forward swing, it's going to push the ball to the left, or hook the ball to the left if I'm below 0.25. Very much the same as the motion swing, except instead of having you execute the swing within the gauge, within the meter, you can actually start it anywhere. You can start it out here in the top right, up by the settings button. So again, you'd like to make a 0.25 swing on your 100% power, ideally with a straight swing path. So again, I like to start with the mouse near the player. That way I don't have to move my eyes very far from the mouse cursor, even though the cursor disappears when I start the swing. But let's look at the swing itself and the power. We won't worry about the ratio on this because again, I'll just show you where the power is. So when you start with a right click, as you move the mouse back, you'll see here if you bring the club parallel to the ground, basically the shaft or the grip of the club pointing towards your target, and then you swing forward, that's roughly 50% power, as you see there, 47. Again, we're not worried about the ratio for this time, we're just worried about where the power is. If you bring that up so that the player's hands are just above the belt there, as you can see on the player, Now you're about 60%, it looks like. So you can use this to practice or to determine for yourself where the power is. I.e., if you watch the player's hands or the club head versus the player's animation itself, you'll get an idea of the swing power. So if I go, we said that was about 50%. That here was about 60, right where his hands are just showing his belt. If you go up such that his hand, the glove, let's say, is right off of his body, that looks like about 75% power. Again, right click to start. Now if you take it back, that we said was 75. If you take this back until you start seeing a little gap between his right arm and left arm, you can see a little bit there. That power is about 90%. And to get to 100%, it's almost to the point where the club is pointing at the target. There it was, 100%. You saw it wasn't quite parallel to the ground, but that's what that's what the game is determined to be 100%. Beyond 100%, so that's about 100. Beyond that, you can see the avatar's shoulders sort of move a little bit and coil almost. You'll see I got to 121% power there. So right click as we go back, there's 100, and then you can see the shoulders move a little bit or coil. It coils up his back. And then with a good swing, good ratio, you can get 121 or 122% power is basically full power, and the distance goes a little farther. So the power, similar to the gauge, but you need to use the player animation as your gauge, and you get to learn that by feel and by repetition and practice on the driving range. Like the motion swing again, you want to have a ratio that's 0.25 or very close to 0.25 to give you the best chance at a straight shot. Also, like the motion swing, you'll need to finish the swing within 3 seconds. If you take longer than 3 seconds, even if your ratio is pretty good, that one's a little slow, but you'll find that the distance that you get will be drastically reduced. 101% power. My distance is only 219 total yards. And that's because if you bring up the console, you'll see probably the last entry I was over 3 seconds to execute the swing. So there's 0.21. Not great, but not terrible. I had a bad path and offset. But it only went 220 yards, and again, because my swing, it's because my swing took more than 3 seconds. And again, you can check that in the console. So you'll need to learn to, again, hit the right ratio with the right power, all within under 3 seconds to execute a good swing. Similar to the motion swing, you can force a hook or a slice by moving the mouse either in in a fashion like this, let's say 11:30 to 5:30, that will basically mean on the forward swing you're cutting across the ball like this, which will make the ball spin out to the right. Or you can swing this way from 12:30 to 6:30, and as your forward swing hits the ball, it'll try and put spin to the left and cause the ball to go to the left. So let's try a couple of those. Here's one. I'm going to try and go to make a fade. Okay, well, the fade's hard to tell because I had such a poor ratio, and the offset was way off the toe, but you'll see a 36 path out to in. There's another one which it's hard to see because I executed such a poor swing. I'm not having much luck doing that, but again, that's where you need to practice, and it's quite difficult to make that swing happen. There's one where I've got a good in-out path, and even though the ratio of 0.23 was fairly close, should have gone reasonably straight, the ball hooked just because of my swing path. There's another one. That one should have faded a little bit, but it's still hooked because of the swing path. So, like I say, it's difficult to do that, but it's quite rewarding when you do. However, you can still use the shot shaper and then make a straight swing to get a draw. Well, it won't draw if you have a bad ratio like that. So I can't really execute that very well, but you may be able to see that it's a bit tricky to do. However, with practice, it can be quite a rewarding swing, as you really do have a fair amount of control over the ball trajectory, from left to right, a pull slice, push hook. You can manufacture all sorts of shots once you've understood everything that goes into the shot. So again, the motion swing, basically you start with a right click anywhere on the screen, pull the mouse back towards you, push it away from you beyond that. If you do that to the proper ratio and can get your power to 100%, you'll see some shots that are quite rewarding once you've executed them properly.